So I want people to understand that as you are hearing all the things that I have to say today, you might think like, oh, well, everybody's that way. But be open to hearing the full spectrum of everything that we'll be talking about. So my little sister was diagnosed, and she started to study up on the difference between how women present and how men present with autism, and it's very, very different.
What's going on, everybody? Arne here with another episode of the Community and Conversions Show. And as always, we brought some amazing guests. Today, we've got Beth Griffith. She is incredible. She's one of our mastermind clients who is a absolute rock star at many things. Today, we're going to be talking about how to succeed as an autistic or neurodiverse CEO, and also how you as a business leader, community leader, can be able to better help the people in your life who are neurodiverse, and also what neurodiversity is, what it means, how it can show up, and how it's a superpower as well. So I'm really excited for this session to dive in. And also it's Autism Awareness Month. So what better time to have this conversation than right now? So thank you so much for coming on, Beth.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you using your platform to help people to understand autism and how it relates to entrepreneurship. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited because, you know, we always hear these incredible stories of people who are autistic, are neurodiverse, and have these very unique superpowers. They can come out in different ways. And, you know, as entrepreneurs, we're always looking for an advantage, right? So we got to figure out how to best use these superpowers in ourselves, in our team, and the people in our lives, and also understand the unique challenges that come with working with different people. So I'd love to hear a little bit and have you share with the audience kind of how your journey has been with yourself, your family, how this has showed up, and also kind of how you made the decision to be a leader in the space and speak out and help people through this as entrepreneurs. It's really incredible to see.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So the important thing to know first off is that there are several people in my family that have been diagnosed with autism. The first person that was diagnosed was my little sister about 15 years ago. And she was a teenager when, she was, 10, 12, something like that, when she was diagnosed. And she was treated really, really badly when she received that diagnosis. Nobody believed that she actually was autistic. And I probably didn't even fully believe it. I probably thought like, oh, it's just because mom treated you X, Y, and Z way, right? So I want people to understand that as you are hearing all the things that I have to say today, you might think like, oh, well, everybody's that way. But be open to hearing the full spectrum of everything that we'll be talking about. So my little sister was diagnosed, and she started to study up on the difference between how women present and how men present with autism, and it's very, very different. And so she actually came to me well over 10 years ago, and she had said, hey, I think you're autistic. And I had told her, no, there's no way I'm autistic. There's just no way. Fast forward, I have a nephew that's been diagnosed. I have a cousin that's been diagnosed. And just last May, my son, he was 5, he was diagnosed. And as I started to research everything about autism to be able to help support my son, I ended up realizing, holy crap, this is me. I actually have a sibling who had that same experience. A child was diagnosed, and my brother ended up realizing, holy crap, I'm autistic too. And so I ended up telling myself like, oh, I'm not going to worry about getting diagnosed because what's it going to change at this point? I'm an entrepreneur. I work for myself. I can make all my own accommodations. What's the point in getting diagnosed? But someone very dear to me was going for their own diagnosis, and they were feeling like very overwhelmed by the process, and I didn't want them to go through it alone. And so I said, would it help if I went and got diagnosed with you? And so one day apart, we both got diagnosed, and I could tell within like 10 minutes of her meeting me that she had already diagnosed me in her head, and she went through the process as a formality. But yeah, so I was diagnosed at the end of February with autism. But for the past year and a half, I have been eating, sleeping, and breathing everything autism related so that I could help my son. And I actually have a daughter who she is going to be evaluated for it this weekend. So I am in a world where autism is touching every single facet of my life, every second of every day. So
Yeah, and it's incredible to see what you've done that not everybody has the time or the patience, the ability to do, which is really just dive in and
yeah.
really figure out how you can learn this and make the best out of this for you and your family and your business.
Yeah, and that the other thing that I would want to say on that is there are so many people who do dive in, but there is so much shame because of the stigma of what everybody thinks autism is. There are so many people in the entrepreneur space who are not open about the fact that they are autistic, and so they keep it a secret. And so I have zero shame about it. It's when, some people are very private because they're autistic. I don't care. Like, okay, I will tell everybody if somebody wants to know intimate details about what it's like because of autism. I don't care. Like, I'm just completely an open book for it. And so I've actually had a lot of people who don't tell anybody that they're autistic, who have come to me and said, like, I'm so grateful that you're doing this because I want the stigma to change, but I can't tell anybody because of how I would be treated in my life. And so I believe that it's extremely important for me to be as open with my autism as possible, and to start to make the changes in how autism is perceived, and everything that people know and understand about autism, so that those people, they can actually not be ashamed and hide the fact that they're autistic. It's just a huge symptom of how messed up our society is and how we perceive autism.
100%. And I know there's a million different misconceptions that's just out of people, they just don't know these things yet. So are there any of those big ones that you want to clear up where like everybody thinks it's this, but it's really this?
Yeah. So the very first thing that you need to know is just a little bit about the history of autism. There were two main doctors who started a lot of the research when it comes to autism, and one was Dr. Connor. Dr. Connor only believed that autism was the people who presented classically. He believed that there were only like 150 people in the whole world that were autistic, and they had to be completely nonverbal. They had to be classical autism, is what they were called for quite some time. And so completely nonverbal, they had to like flap their hands. They had to be very isolated. They didn't interact with the world at all. And so there was a very limited definition of what autism was, according to Dr. Connor. A different doctor, Dr. Asperger, Hans Asperger, the important thing to know about him, 100% he was a Nazi. And it's not debatable. He was a Nazi. He actually did send some children to their deaths. And he also was more progressive with how he diagnosed autism. And so Asperger's is what high functioning autism was called for quite some time in the DSM, which is the manual that describes all of the different mental health conditions that somebody can be diagnosed with. Asperger's was the way that they defined high functioning autism from 2003 to 2013. Maybe it was 2004 to 2013. Anyway, so they ended up changing that name at one point, and a lot of things came out about him and his involvement with Nazi Germany. But in Nazi Germany, what happened was there was Hitler's Youth, and there were certain kids that would not participate in Hitler's Youth. And so they sent all of these kids to be evaluated for Asperger's psychopathy. And so they were actually evaluating these kids who refused to participate in Nazism as psychopaths. And these were autistic children. And so one of the things to know is that girls present so differently than boys. Dr. Asperger believed that a girl could not be autistic or have Asperger's. And so Dr. Asperger actually did send some girls to prison to their dads when they presented with these cases. And so all of the historical data that we have about autism, it's from mostly these two men for quite some time, who had very limited beliefs about this. And then there was a psychologist, Dr. Wayne, in England, who ended up interpreting a lot of the documents from Dr. Asperger, and she reevaluated and presented what Asperger's is to the world. So Dr. Asperger only, the criteria that he listed it with, these were all the ways that boys presented and not how women presented at all. So to this day, when you look up the criteria for what autism would be diagnosed, the criteria that they use to diagnose autism, it's based on young boys. And so an adult woman with autism behaves night and day different than my son and I look completely different with how our autism shows up, but we're both autistic. And so basically the first thing to understand is that with that history, you need to throw out everything that you think that you know about autism. It is not just something where it's somebody who doesn't communicate at all and they happen to be a savant. It's not Rain Man. There are some shows that have done a great job of starting to depict autism in different ways. Atypical, I really, really liked, but again, it's depicting a boy. And so we don't see what it looks like in women at all. And so anyway, first off, you just have to throw out pretty much everything you knew about it and come into it with an open mind. So I'm not sure I answered your question or created 1,000 more, but there you go.
I'm sure both, and that's what all this is about, is being able to open our minds up to this topic and listen and learn. And it's such a shame that the foundation of today's knowledge around this is that old and that outdated and that sexist. That's terrible. Yeah. So when's your book coming out?
I have literally been thinking about that. So it's noodling in there. Just have to decide how I want to write it. So
yeah, no, that'd be incredible, because definitely need some new information, new leaders coming out in that space. So that'd be incredible to see. Yeah. So I'm definitely curious, jumping back into how this has shown up for you in business, and now that you also have a group helping these neurodiverse CEOs. First up, if anybody's curious, make sure to go join that. I'll tag it down below. If you guys are watching this on the replay somewhere else, what's the name of the group again?
The Neurodiverse CEO Alliance.
Cool. So I'll tag that down below. Make sure you guys go join up if you're curious. Check it out. Just listen, learn, participate. I know for myself, I was really curious about this as somebody who works with team members, clients, all kinds of people. You never know if somebody's not diagnosed or doesn't even know, or things like that. I
was running my business for 5 years and I had no idea that I was that whole time.
Yeah. So I think a community like this is a great spot to really kind of explore that, whether it's for yourself or for other people in your life, and see what the conversations are like. Because like you said, a lot of people, they might be having more private conversations, or are ashamed of their diagnosis or what's going on. So having a place like your group is the place to do it.
And it's incredible to see just how open and honest and real people are in there. I have never seen or participated in a group quite that real.
100%.
Fantastic.
Yeah, super cool to see that and participate and learn from that group. So how did, like, after getting your diagnosis, were there some things that kind of clicked for you in how you're showing up in business or not showing up, that helped you better kind of own that and be like, okay, cool. Now knowing that, here's some things that we can kind of do to make everything work smoother. What was that experience
so
like?
one of the first things that's really interesting around this is, I've hired tons and tons and tons of coaches over the years, and I've, worked with them in different capacities, either like just something like really quick or longer term. And one of the really interesting things is that a lot of traditional coaching does not work for an autistic person. And understanding that all of these ways that I had felt like I had failed with business and with coaching leading up to this point in time, it was like, oh my gosh, it wasn't that I'm lazy, it wasn't that I'm not motivated, it wasn't that a thousand other things that I had told myself. I'm autistic, and so this stuff doesn't work. So for example, one of the things that people do a lot in the coaching industry is they tell you to push harder. If you are having a problem, you're sabotaging yourself. If you are running into an issue, you need to just push through and do it. When in reality, with autism, the way that I've explained it and had a lot of autistic people confirm to me that they agree this is how they would describe it, is when I hit certain points, I can actually feel my nerves buzzing, and my nerves will buzz to the point that like, if I do not go into sensory deprivation, and sometimes it's for a short period of time and sometimes it's for a few days, if I don't have sensory deprivation to calm my nervous system, I actually will physically crash. I've had many clients see me physically crash when I don't actually just take that time away. So there'll be days where I'll just have to text my team and be like, I can't talk to anybody for a while. And they completely understand. I had been designing, one of the things I had done with my business is I had created what's called the brand identity profile. And it's 12 different personalities that brands are based off of. And there's a superhero version of it and a supervillain version of it, of each of those types. What I actually found out when I was being diagnosed with autism is that that's actual science, social science research. And the psychologist has actually asked me to do legit research because of what I've naturally developed all on my own. And so we're actually going to be doing scientific research around autism and some different things together. And so that's really incredible. But I had developed all of these personalities because I had been saying, why is it working for everybody else, but it doesn't work for me? And so I started to recognize that there were different types of personalities and blends of these personalities in the entrepreneurial space. And so the type that I lead with is the rock star, and the rock star actually needs to be accommodated in many of the same ways that an autistic person needs to be accommodated. And so I'd actually written into this brand identity profile autistic accommodations, and I had been building those into my business for the past few years, not even knowing what I was doing. So
that's incredible, because I've seen all of those brand identities coming out, and really people resonating with a lot of those things, and then you're like, wait a second, this goes like, together.
The development of it alone, was one of the things that helped to confirm my diagnosis. And then on the flip side, it's literally, okay, what types of accommodations do all of these types of people need to be making for themselves in their businesses? So
yeah, and I remember you talking about that a few times, where especially when you have a team that is fully on board to support, that's where it can just be a major game changer. And autistic or not, figuring out how the people around you, everybody's strengths and weaknesses and needs show up, and being able to collaborate with that and really just keep pushing forward is incredible. So what are some of the things that helped you really stay in your best zone of genius, and set that communication with your team? Say, hey, sometimes I'm gonna disappear for a couple of days, I need to, I'll be back, I'll be recharged.
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so some of the different things that were showing up for me before I started to have my team take over is I actually had a problem several years back where I could not remember my calls. I could not, I would forget client calls on a regular basis. And it was so upsetting. It was so frustrating to me. I felt like a complete failure. I felt like a fraud. I felt like any day I was going to go online and I would have been cancel cultured because of the fact that like I could not remember my calls. And it was really frustrating because everybody would say to me like, oh, just schedule them, just do this, just do that. You know, everybody gave me all of these solutions and nothing was working. And I kept feeling like I was just absolutely failing my company. I was failing my clients. I was failing everybody just because my brain would not retain this. And now I understand that this is one of the traits that show up with autism, where I do not have object permanence. If it is not in front of me, it does not exist. And if I do not have a very specific routine, it does not exist. And so I will not work with clients who will not do their calls at the times that I do calls. If you will not do calls when I do calls, we cannot do business together. Because if I have a call on a random Thursday afternoon, I will not make it. I will not remember that it exists because it is outside of my routine. And I always had this problem where I would look at my calendar and within 30 seconds, I forgot everything that was on it. And so by setting it up so that I have a team who one of the other traits with autism is communication difficulty. Autism is a social disability. It's a communication disability. And so communication, when somebody would come to me and they would say, hey, I need to do a call on a Thursday afternoon, you know, I would feel like I have no choice. Like I have to just do whatever. And in reality, I don't. And so having team members that can have those conversations for me, they are much better at boundaries than I am. And they also make sure they have the executive functioning, which I'll explain what that is in a second, but they have the executive functioning to take it from this person has this conversation with me. Here's the link for them. They get on the calendar. It took me years to be able to take someone through that simple process of here is the correct link. And so now we bypass that by everybody just goes straight to my assistant directly for all of those things, because I have better things to use my executive functioning skills on than booking a call with a client that can be done through somebody else. So
100%.
Yeah.
So like, that's incredible. The first time you figured it out and figured out the system that works for it. And now you get to spend more time in your zone of genius. Mm-hmm. So I feel like you have a few of those. Like you're so smart in a lot of things that you do and what you've accomplished, what I've seen you do just over the last few months. So like what are some of those zone of geniuses? Like how did you really lean on those? And you know, how are you helping entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So one of the important things that I was mentioning before is executive functioning. Executive functioning is the ability to know that I need to do A, then B, then C to accomplish D. And autistic people and people with ADHD, a lot of us just don't have that skill set at all. Many neurotypical people, they can say, okay, I need to create this PDF. So I envision the PDF and then I can figure out what needs to go on it. An autistic person cannot figure that out. We cannot envision something that does not exist in that way. And so many of us, we have to actually go in order of, okay, here I am right now, and we have to move forward towards it. There is no reverse engineering. And so understanding that about yourself, it's really valuable because you start to realize the types of coaches you need to hire. You need to be hiring coaches that actually have step-by-step systems that help you to move forward through things to the end goal, because you're never going to be able to create that on your own in your head. Unless your autism moves in a different way than most of the people that I've talked to in this space. So with that executive dysfunction, you start to look at the fact that the executive functioning can create that nerve buzzing sensation that I was talking about. If you're having to make lots and lots of decisions, then that actually can make it so that your brain completely shuts you down, and it shuts everything down with what you're trying to create. And so I've started to find ways to work around that. If you think about Steve Jobs wore the same outfit every day. Steve Jobs was autistic. And so it's little things like that. How can I integrate all sorts of details into my day so that they are consistent, so they are routine? The problem is that if somebody has autism and ADHD, or they have some of the specific traits that can show up with autism, creating that routine is next to impossible. And so we have to use tools like body doubles. So I actually hired my main assistant. She lives in the same state as me. And so she comes to my house twice a week and she body doubles. She's not necessarily telling me what to do all day, but she sits next to me and she makes me answer difficult logistical questions that I want to avoid. She makes me deal with the logistics with her actually sitting right in front of me. Or she sits next to me and she tells me, okay, you can finish that, you can finish that, you can finish that. And whereas a lot of the traditional coaching, it's somebody who they come and they tell you, oh, just do X, Y, and Z. Whereas somebody with autism or ADHD, they need someone to sit next to them and be right there. And it doesn't need to even be a high price point person to do this. Literally, you can hire somebody for minimum wage to come and sit and just be your boss. Okay. So understanding that, like, some people would just love to be somebody's boss. Hey, I am hiring you to come be my boss. I will tell you what we need to accomplish. I can even tell you what we need to do it, but I need you to just sit here and make sure that I actually do it. And so we actually have started doing some things with people, the entrepreneurs inside the Neurodiverse CEO Alliance, where some people have, I'm training a coach who literally is an accountability coach that gets on a WhatsApp chat with somebody once a day for 15 minutes and says, show me your checklist. Show me yesterday's checklist. What did you actually get done? It's forcing the object to come face to face with the entrepreneur so they can actually see what they're accomplishing. Whereas a once a week, weekly check-in where you forgot what you were supposed to do from one call to the next, it's useless to somebody who does not have that executive functioning, and somebody who does not have, who has time blindness, or somebody who has a lack of object permanence. And so those things make it so that traditional work coaching does not work.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I'm seeing a business within that right there, you know, like, you know, how, you know, you can even hire, like Uber, there was an option on Uber for somebody to just walk somewhere with you.
Body double. Yeah.
Like, so, you know, hey, I know I need some extra accountability, you know, just have somebody come by for a few hours.
Yes.
That could be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And that's actually one of the things that we're working towards. Is I want to make it one of the biggest problems that we have as neurodivergent entrepreneurs is that for us to get the things that we need to be able to do what a neurotypical person does, it costs us a lot more, because we need somebody to help with every single step along the way in the way that other people don't. And so one of my goals is to actually create a nonprofit of sorts where we have these accountability coaches. We have Pomodoros going on throughout the day where people can hop on and get that accountability, but to do it at a price point where it's not tens of thousands of dollars for somebody to get that help, for somebody to be able to do this for a couple $100s a month, instead of it being thousands and thousands of dollars for you to be able to do what somebody else is able to do.
Yeah, love that. I also heard there's some different like AI style apps for that are like your assistant. So plenty of really cool options in there. So keep us posted, because I know you're gonna have like a book, a new PhD, a software startup. Uber.
So I'm not going to have the PhD now, actually, because the psychologist is letting me use her PhD to accomplish the things that I wanted to. So she actually has she's worked with Yelp and lots of really big companies on helping to create accommodations for autistic people in the workplace by creating these So she's you asked this question quite a while ago and I didn't answer it. You asked, like, what is neurodiversity? Neurodiversity is a philosophy. It's a philosophy that neurodivergent people with autism, people with ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, those are the main ones that are listed as neurodiverse. that we should be able to integrate into society, and everybody should work together without us having to cover up the fact that we are neurodivergent. And so she actually helps go into large corporations to make them neurodiverse, to make it so that these companies work with their neurodivergent employees. And so she and I are partnering on a lot of things, and she's going to be bringing some really incredible tools that she's used with Yelp and really high-end big companies to create a neurodiverse environment. And so we're going to be bringing a lot of those things into play as well. So
cool. Yeah, it's gonna be incredible to keep seeing this this evolution and see the impact you're already making on the group and on the world. So
thank you.
Really excited to keep supporting you however we can to do that. So as we get towards wrapping up here, I'd love to hear where can people come and learn more, follow you, and if you have any last words for everybody else watching.
Yeah, so we have the Neurodiverse CEO seminar happening at the end of this month. And so it's 2 days. The first day is designed for neurodivergent entrepreneurs, and we're going to be teaching skills all about how to work with your neurodivergence in your business. And then the second day is actually designed for both neurodiverse and neurotypical entrepreneurs, so that you can make it so that your team and your neurodivergent clients are actually taken care of. How do you design things so that you're working with neurodivergence in that capacity? So definitely just go pop over to my page. My cover photo has that. And you can also join us in the Neurodiverse CEO Alliance. And we have stuff going in there constantly, just to help you feel more normal. Know that you're not alone in this. So.
Love it. Thank you for so much for coming on. So everybody, make sure to go follow, check out the seminar, check out the group, check out all the things, and we'll keep supporting you and poking at you to get the book out and get everything else out.
Awesome. Thanks, Arne.
All right. Thank you so much. See ya.
Bye.